today's book is Long Shadows by David Baldacci. In this book, we meet Amos Decker. He is an FBI agent, and he is sent on assignment to Florida to look into the murder of a judge. Her name was Julia Cummings, and it seems that she had died along with her bodyguard, and his name was Alan Draymond. So while he's there, he is also assigned a new partner, and her name is Frederica White. She's from DC as well. His previous partner had moved to New York. So this is a part of a series. And so we know that Decker, Amos Decker is his name. Did I say that? And he used to play football, so he's a big, tall guy. And he had an accident years ago, and that left him with hyperthymesia and synesthesia. And with these two conditions, one, he can remember whatever he reads. He has perfect recall. And two, one of the things that he discovered after that head injury is that he can see blood or death in colors. So whenever he goes somewhere and it hits him and he sees electric blue, he knows that death has occurred in that place. So because of his head injury, he's kind of not the same as he used to be, because he kind of lacks the typical empathy that one would show, or appropriate social behavior. He's kind of straight to the point, which kind of comes off and rubs people the wrong way sometimes. But he is a diligent agent, and he generally wants to solve all his cases. As a matter of fact, I think he has pretty much 100% solve rate on his cases. But he has a good heart, but he just comes off very wrong because of, the way his mind works now. So anyway, so this judge had the idea here, or the narrative that she was spilling, was that she had hired this company named Gamma, and that's why the gentleman was at her house. But through the course of the investigation, Decker and White had discovered that they seemed to have been having some kind of relationship going on. So as they're working on the case, they talk to the neighbors. There's a neighbor next door, and they also talk to the neighbor on the other side, and then of course where she works. So we later find that typically when there are death threats, it's handled by the Justice Department, and so she never reported any issues, but she did mention to her son that she had hired the bodyguard or the protective service because of some silly stuff to do with work. So they figured it might have been death threats because she was a judge, and also the same thing to her ex-husband. So Julia was divorced with a son, a teenage son who plays football, and then so we meet her husband as well. Now, when Decker and White started investigating, they go to Gamma, of course, because that agent was there. And Decker, when he had initially seen the crime scene, it registered to him that it's probably two different killers here, because the protective service guy Draymond was shot, and Julia was killed with a knife. So the way he was saying it, like, if this was the same killer, then why would, you allow her to run off and then go kill her with a knife? It just didn't make sense. However, based on the evidence, people were kind of skeptical about it. Another element to this murder is that Draymond's mouth or throat was stuffed with Slovakian money. And so in investigating and looking up the company, he discovers that the original owner of Gamma is from Slovakian descent. He was originally with the Secret Service, and then he left DC to come to Florida to start Gamma. Now, his name was Canuck Rowe. And so he had disappeared and assumed dead 3 years prior, and now his daughter is now in charge of Gamma. Now, his daughter had followed in his footsteps and worked in the Secret Service as well. So the fact that there was a Slovakian money in the crime scene led him to believe that he had to have had a connection with Gamma, because there is just no reason for Slovakian money to be present. So He went to the office to talk to the daughter. Her name was Casimira Rowe. And so it seemed like she was kind of reluctant to release any information citing clients' privileges and all that, and that she would have to talk to her counsel. So the impression that we're getting is that she is holding something back because, this person is dead. So regardless of privacy, why not give the information to help, them find the killer? So when she finally relented and asked for him to come to the office and that they were going to assign somebody who could talk to him, who would probably have some idea, because Decker was questioning whether Julia had hired Gamma because there was no paper trail showing that she had hired them. So when they went to the office, they brought forth this lady. Her name was Alice. I can't remember her last name. So it was really weird because when she came forth and she was supposed to be given the information, she kind of collapsed and had to be taken to the hospital. Now, Decker is hell-bent on getting this information, and he didn't care by the hook or by the crook. He's going to talk to this lady, Alice. So when he went to the hospital, he was waiting, in the reception area, and he was like, okay, he talked to a lady, and based on what she was saying, he was like, okay, this is not the typical procedure, so why is this different? So ultimately, I went to the room. She wasn't there. And he was later told that some police had come by to get her, but it didn't seem that they were real police. So she has disappeared into thin air. So the next thing that was happening that was odd was, when Decker went to go talk to Julia's secretary, her name was Patty, he was told when he called the office, he was told that she called in sick. She was distraught about the death of her boss. And then he went over to the house and her husband said she wasn't there. She probably went out to run errands. And he kept checking back and she never came back home. So she kind of went up into thin air. And so now his interest is really piqued as to what's going on and what's the connection. Now, this lady disappears and then she disappears. So what's really going on? So, her husband called and texted, nothing. So he is proceeding to try to discover what is going on. He also talks to the son. He talks to the ex-husband as well. And so this is we go through, all the events that occurred in the process of him being on this investigation to determine, what has happened and what led to the death of these two people. So ultimately this led to, currency being purchased online, and we discovered that it led back to somebody in Gamma. And this person was saying that, they didn't purchase this. So apparently there was some conspiracy to make it look like this one person did it, and it really wasn't. We also find out that ultimately there was a connection between Alice, the lady from Gamma who disappeared, and also the secretary as well. And unfortunately, there were some folks who were involved, and there were some deaths that occurred just to avoid them from being able to talk and reveal certain things. Now, also, Decker had talked to an old friend of Kenneth Rowe, and something that he said led him to look into the past and what had occurred, because he had mentioned that one time when they were on assignment in Florida, he seemed to have been traumatized by something that occurred when the rest of his team had gone out for the night, and he had decided to stay home. And so that led Decker to look into the events of that particular night and what had occurred, and that led him to a conspiracy that involved a Florida senator from years and years ago. And it seemed like those events now have resurfaced just because of the fact that Kanek was sick, and it seemed that he had some guilty conscience and wanted to reveal certain events that had occurred. So the past years and years and years and years and years ago is leading back to the present and causing people to lose their lives to keep the secret of what had happened years ago. So this had quite a few characters in the book. It was very, I guess, action-packed, I would say, because there was a lot of events that occur, and they had to really, the author really kept you on your toe as far as, keeping a pretty high pace in the book and keeping it, it exciting. I definitely enjoyed this one. 4 stars, definitely for sure. Baldacci generally have pretty good storylines, and this is no different. So if you have read or listened to this book, let me know your thoughts. Like, comment, subscribe, and until next time,